What's up, folks? Welcome to Woodworking Against the Grain. Look here, it's one day before Thanksgiving, so everybody's got to be ready. Today we're going to make an old-fashioned grandma pecan cake. A lot of people never even heard of a pecan cake. This one is going to be off the chain, and if you'll hang around a few minutes, we'll show you how to make it, and then we'll show you how to eat it. First thing we're going to do, in the mixer, we got a stick of butter. We're going to turn that on kind of slow, medium speed. To that stick of butter, we're going to add a half a cup of vegetable oil, or whatever oil you prefer. This happens to be coconut oil. We're going to let that butter and that oil get friendly with a cup and a half granulated sugar. While this creams up and makes a good emulsion here, we're going to go ahead take care of our dry ingredients. I got 2 cups of all-purpose flour in a sifter. To that, we're going to add a tablespoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of baking soda, a half a teaspoon of salt. Got all that going in the sifter here. We're going to sift it through a time or two just to get all these ingredients mixed up, get all the BBs out of the flour. While this butter and sugar is creaming over here, we'll take care of this. This cake has been around this family for a long, long time. It's not going to win any awards at the county fair for looks. It's a very short cake. It's got pecans in it, so it's a very fragile cake. And the icing that we're going to put on it is a thin pour-over somewhat caramel icing. So this cake's not going to be a beautiful cake, but it's going to be a delicious cake. And we've got a good pale yellow right here on this butter and sugar. If you can see down in that mixture a little bit there. To that mixture, we're going to add, one at a time, 3 whole eggs. We're going to add one and let it mix in there pretty good. We're going to add one more. Get that yolk broken up good and mixed in with the butter, and then we'll add the 3rd one. Once you get your eggs in this mixture, you can turn it up just a little bit. Once that gets all mixed in there pretty good, we're going to do one scrape down of the sides of our bowl so we don't miss anything here. Once we get that kind of scraped off, make a mess if we can, turn that back on. Now, we got our dry ingredients here. We're going to start spooning these in. You need to have your mixer turned down pretty slow for this. Start with flour. Add a couple of big heaping tablespoons of flour. You'll see that starting to get thick, and over here we've got 1 cup of buttermilk. We're going to alternate the flour and the buttermilk mixture going in here till we get this batter made. A little bit more of the flour. I've got 3 9-inch cake pans over there with parchment paper in the bottom of them. That's what we're going to pour this batter in. We're going to put it in a 350-degree oven for about 30 minutes. While it's cooking in the oven, we're going to make the icing for it. This is a cooked icing that I think you're going to find very, very tasty. We got the last of our flour in there. A little bit more buttermilk. Now that our flour is not dry, we can turn the speed up just a little. Put the rest of our buttermilk in there. Now, this is good full-fat buttermilk that I'm using, so it's kind of thick. I'm going to use a spatula there and get all that out of that measuring cup. Now, once we've got all this together, I'm going to add a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. We don't want to overwork our flour here, so we're just going to stir this long enough to get it going. We're going to raise this up and we're going to add about a cup to a cup and a quarter of chopped pecans. And that's what makes this cake so tasty, but it also makes it very delicate. Now once you put your pecans in there, you just want to stir them real gentle like till they get all mixed in the batter. And then you want to just turn that off. Scrape your beater down. Now, we're going to divide this. This is a thick batter, so it doesn't pour all that well. You kind of have to help it out. We're going to divide it between 3 9-inch pans. It's got parchment paper in the bottom. Parchment paper is the one surefire way that your cake doesn't stick. You can use flour and grease, you can use sugar and grease, and it's just no guarantee that it's not going to stick anyway sometimes. So if you put this parchment paper in the bottom, pretty much a guarantee that you won't have any trouble with your cake sticking. Get all that batter out of there. Once you get this in your pans, and I decided to make this in just 2 9-inch pans instead of 3 because I want the layers to be a little thicker. Get it in your pan, kind of drop your pan on a towel there to get the air bubbles out from under the bottom of your batter. Just drop it till the batter runs out to the sides of the pan. Do the same thing with both of them. Remember, 350, 25 to 30 minutes till the toothpick comes out clean. Don't go away, we're about to make some icing. All right, look here, we got our cakes out of the oven. We're going to let them cool in these pans for about 5 minutes before we turn them out on this wire rack. I just wanted you to see how pretty and golden brown they come out. That's the buttermilk that does that trick to that cake. It makes it that golden brown. We're going to let those sit there just a few minutes, and we're going to turn them upside down on these racks, let them cool to room temperature while we make some off-the-chain icing for this. All right, folks, we're back. We got our cakes out of the oven. We're about to bust off some icing right here. In this saucepan, I've got a whole stick of real butter, to which I'm about to add a hot fire. To that hot fire and butter, we're going to add 2 cups of granulated sugar right in on top of that butter. Now, this icing's not for the faint in heart, and it ain't for those who are on a diet. 2 cups granulated sugar on top of a stick of butter. Do you hear me? A stick of butter. Now, to that, we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of evaporated milk. And I don't want you to tell anybody about this evaporated milk because it's a trade secret. It's just going to be between me and you. You get that milk in there, add 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt, just enough to keep it from being bland. The yolk of 1 egg, not the shell and not the white, just the yolk. Right in on top of that. And 1/4 of a cup of Karo syrup. Yes, it's going to be sweet. It's going to be real, real sweet. Reminds me a lot of myself. So sweet. And once you get all that Karo in there, what we're going to do is bring this to a rolling boil. This sugar will, when the butter melts, the sugar will dissolve in the milk pretty quick. And I'm not going to make you endure the whole 8-minute boiling process of this, but bring this to a rolling boil and let it boil really hard while you're constantly stirring it for 8 minutes. After 8 minutes, we're going to take it off the fire, let it cool. We may even put it in an ice bath and let this cool down. to spreading consistency, and we're going to put it on top of that cake we just took out of the oven. Now once this gets through boiling, we're going to add a teaspoon of vanilla and another cup to cup and a quarter of chopped pecans. We'll come back at about the time we get ready to add the pecans and the vanilla. Right now I'm going to stir this for about 8 or 10 minutes while you go get you something to eat. Stay tuned. We've had this boiling for a good few minutes here till it's getting thick. And we're going to take it off the heat, put our vanilla flavoring in it, stir in our pecans, and then we're going to put this in an ice bath and bring it down to room temperature to spreading consistency. Then we're going to put it on the cake. All right, folks, we're about to wrap this cake up. We've got our ice in here cooled off to about room temperature, just maybe a little bit below. We had it in an ice bath there. This is not a frosting. It does not smear on the cake like a buttercream, so don't even try that. This is an icing. We're going to pour most of it over. I'm going to take this wooden spoon, and I'm going to poke a few holes in the top of this first layer of this cake right here. I told y'all at the start of this that this wasn't going to win any blue ribbons for looks at the county fair. Poke a few holes in the top, and we're going to take a little bit of this, and this is really yummy icing right here. Pour it on the top like that, and we're just going to kind of smear that around a little bit. Keep several paper towels handy when you're doing this, because this is kind of a mess. Get just enough in between these layers that it covers good. And you don't have to push it all the way out to the side, because when you put this next layer on like we're about to do, it'll mash that icing on out. You have to be kind of careful with these layers, because they've got pecans in them. They tend to be a little bit fragile. Luckily that didn't break. I have had them crumble all the pieces there. Then we're going to take this rest of this icing, put it right on top. I poke just a couple of holes around the edge of that so some of that can run down in there. Not too many where it'll fall apart, just a few. Pour that right on. Kind of guide it just a little bit so when it runs off the side of the cake, it runs off of all sides. And I'm telling you, your friends and family, if you make this, they're going to love you more than they love you already. If they don't love you at all, here's you a chance to get back in their good graces right here. Normally, at the end of these videos, I'll cut a piece of cake and taste it and let you know how good it is. However, today, since how today is the day before Thanksgiving and this is going to Thanksgiving dinner, I'm not going to cut it. I'm just going to let that icing ooze over the top like that. We're going to put a cover on this cake. It'll catch all this icing as it runs off. And we're going to say, thanks for watching. Come back to see us.